The Grenlec Debates, powering bright ideas.
You're watching the 11th season of the Grenlec Debates. Please bear in mind that matches, topics, and positions are randomly selected by schools. The theme for the round of 16 is Grenadian and Caribbean history. I am your chairperson, Rohan Bernard, and I call this house to order. And the motion is, be it resolved that Grenadians do not value our culture. The proposition, St. David's Catholic Secondary. The opposition, Hillsborough Secondary. Please welcome the first speaker for the proposition.
Good morning, all. Today, my colleagues and I stand in firm support of the moot that Grenadians do not value our culture. As first speaker, I will lay out our case, outline the task division, and focus on the changing attitudes that reflect a declining value of our culture among Grenadians. Our second speaker will continue to build on this focus, demonstrating specific aspects of our culture that should not be devalued and watered down, as their originality and uniqueness is what maintains our Grenadian cultural identity. The cross-examiner will expertly pose and answer questions to show you the flaws in the opposition's argument, thereby making it clear to you that Grenadians do not value their culture. Our rebuttal speaker will expertly poke holes in the opposition's case by refuting any contradictory information and reiterating our main points, thereby giving you no choice but to accept the sad reality that we do not value our culture as Grenadians. According to the American Sociological Association, culture refers to the language, customs, belief, rules, art, knowledge, and collective identities and memories developed by members of all social groups that make their social environment meaningful. It makes us who we are. According to vocabulary.com, when you value something, you consider it worthwhile or important, and Grenadians refer to the native or inhabitants of the Tri-Island state of Grenada. Mr. Chairman, there must be respect for our heritage and traditional practices. Our authentic Grenadian culture should never be eradicated or watered down or be in competition for its survival, especially when it is the heart of what makes us Grenadians in the first place. My opponents, only then will we begin to see the value of our culture among our people. Mr. Chairman, can my opponents say with conviction that we value all aspects of our culture? And if they are brash enough to answer yes, then what happened to Grenadian, Patois, Maple, Saraka, or Wild Indian? Where is the presence of teamwork that was alive during the community maroon? Another victim that was unceremoniously destroyed. Mr. Chairman, countless assaults have been levied against our culture and continues to be, because persons like my opponents refuse to openly acknowledge and accept that we no longer value our culture. Chicken and chips, dance hall, reggae, hip-hop, and more have invaded our culture, and instead of developing proactive ways to revive it, we continue to bury our heads in the sand. I know my opponents are wondering, how do we know that Grenadians do not value their culture? And our response is simple: ignorance, negligence, and cultural assimilation. Mr. Chairman, ask any young person about the significance of many of our cultural activities, and you determine for yourself whether we value our culture enough to educate ourselves about it. It is easy for us to blame young people for the shift in our cultural practices, but what adequate formal and informal systems are in place to pass on our culture? Everything is gone. Why, Mr. Chairman? Many Grenadians value their culture, yes, but unfortunately, they value it less than how they value others. Think about the so-called cultural activities and look at the turnout. Look at the participation at the Mardi Gras or the Emancipation Walk, the Calypso tent. And let's not talk about Panorama, because Collar was wrong when he assumed that it was only Cedar Hall that did not value the Song of Pan at all. It is Grenadians as a whole that do like the thing. Instead, we choose to participate in events that headline Jamaican dancer artists over our local cultural performers and art forms, even during a festival that is meant to highlight Grenada's culture in its rawest and authentic state. Mr. Chairman, This is not only showing that we don't value our culture, this is showing disrespect to our Grenadian culture. How can we openly disrespect our cultural activities and then turn around and argue that we value it? If this isn't denial, I don't know what is.
The first speaker for the opposition.
Good morning. We firmly oppose the motion, be it resolved, that Grenadians do not value our culture. We redefine terms, Cambridge Dictionary, value, to consider something to be important or beneficial. Our, belonging to us. Grenadian, belonging to or relating to Grenada or its people. Culture, the way of life of a group of people, the behaviors, beliefs, values, and symbols that they accept and pass on from one generation to the next. The elements thus include our language, food, art forms, religions, customs, and traditions. Worthy judges, according to Harry John's 2011, culture is continually changing, shared by people of a society, learned, transmissive, and cumulative. Proponents, when we value something, it must be promoted, featured, and taught. It must have longevity and permanence. Preservation thus transmits into investment and thus promotion. Arlie Gale, 2018, former Minister of Culture. I will highlight the diverse nature of the Grenadian culture and show evidence of value in our culture through an exploration of our language, food, and religion. My second speaker will provide further evidence of value in our culture, of value in our cultural art forms, customs, and religions. To be Grenadian means that one is a mixture of British, African, West Indian, and French influences, which has left an indomitable influence in the folklore, dialect, music, and general way of life. Grenada Cultural Foundation 2018. It means one was naturalized, traced from, or born of one of the three islands, Grenada, Carriacou, or Petit Martinique. We speak also to those who are part of the Grenadian diaspora. Proponents, permit me to educate you on the actions taken by our Grenadians to value our language. Accompany me on a trip to our 56 primary schools and 21 public secondary schools on our tri-island state, where the English curriculum features traditional stories and poems that utilize Creole and promote our colloquialism. A further walk into our parishes will show spiced, distinctive accents and pronunciations that vary from parish to parish. Arlie Gale, 2018. But it emphasizes, According to the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Finlay Jeffrey, the ministry has further cemented this by endorsing an ongoing program in collaboration with Dr. Margaret Jones-Joseph, whereby all primary school students in Grenada are taught Creole patois and are engaged in competitions. And in a further effort to promote culture, these measures not only underscore the drive to appreciate, promote, and preserve our culture, but it emphasizes our desire to see its development for the future. Honorable Chair, another visit to our villages show our locals utilizing the fireside to cook our traditional dishes. You can find on our beaches and villages locals putting down a pot of our national ordong. Isn't this, dearest opponents, evidence of value? Its permanence too, dear friends, is undeniable in the rendering of our cultural black cake, salt ham, and sorrel at Christmas time. Additionally, food and nutrition teachers in Grenada facilitate the creation of our local cuisine as part of the student external assessment. Moreover, trotting through the styles of Carriacou and Petit Martinique at a tombstone feast, wedding, funeral, and cook-up, we have Saraka. Even our Grenadian Food and Nutrition Council has seen it fit to promote and invest in the recipe book, Cooking the Grenadian Way. Why, proponents? To teach it, to place it on a pedestal, to ensure its permanence, to value. Misguided proponents. Our religion is juxtaposed with our African Shango Baptist, which is where? Right in St. David. Our European influences spur on Catholicism and other Christian denominations, which is evident in the rituals of our Christian baptisms, weddings and funerals, and our religious festivals and holidays. Even in our schools, Honorable Chair, prayer is a key factor because our nation is intrinsically Christian. The bottom line here is we do value our culture. To suggest that we don't would be pure hogwash. I thank you.
The The second speaker for the proposition.
I value my culture, but I resisted it when it came to my wedding. Why should I spend all this money to value my grandmother's culture when half of the old people that will be there, I don't even know them? The words of an educator from Karakum, a place where we thought culture was valued. Continuing on the established protocol and our definitions, Mr. Chairman, good morning. Mr. Chairman, action speaks louder than words. Saying we value our culture does not automatically translate to us valuing it. Look at the tourism product, a national aspect that should focus on us showcasing our culture with as much originality as possible. However, it focuses primarily on an unauthentic version of our carnival. Can we honestly say that the representation of our culture in the form of carnival as a lewd and provocative product is valuing our culture? Apart from the few surface soca music, the two steel pan, and a jab with no historical context, what else about the product has a uniqueness that is worthwhile? There is no longer the maintenance and preservation of our historical sites and our once cherished landmarks. Look at the National Museum and its almost state of dilapidation, or Grenadian that can be mistaken for a landmark in China. Imagine turning our sugar mill and forts into nightclubs and drinking bars. Is this the value you are referring to? Let's talk about our local music like Calypso, that is regulated to a half-hour segment on the local stations during the last few weeks leading to Carnival. And the fact that we can find dancehall and hip-hop 23.5 hours of the day, every day. And if that is not proof enough, let's talk about All Saints. This day has been transformed to a blockade in the cemetery. Mr. Chairman, not only do we not value our culture, we also don't value our ancestors either. Mr. Chairman, if we valued our Grenadian culture, we will still see the prominence of the village praise, the community saraka, where evidence of community and togetherness was alive, where we all were each other's keeper. Valuing our culture would be reflected in our integration and not this insular mentality of every man for himself. Mr. Chairman, according to the former Minister of Culture, Honorable Brenda Hood, and I quote, April is considered the Heritage Month. Mr. Chairman, first of all, what is Heritage Month? In all my umpteenth years of living, I have never heard or seen anything in my community or parish to reflect the celebration of heritage in the month of April. My opponents, the value is not and has not been in recent years on our culture, unless our culture is about bashing our women, praising rum, and dressing in feathers with little or nothing else in the name of fancy masks, or the ability to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to a neighbor when he is in need because we are okay in our corner, all while our impressionable young minds soak it all into future generations. Mr. Chairman, this evolution of our culture is not and cannot be synonymous to us valuing it. Just because something is present does not mean it is being valued. I thank you.
The second speaker for the opposition.
Morning all, our definition stands. Judges, the valuing of our cultural art forms, customs, traditions, and the efforts that have been made to ensure such is undeniable, whether a microscopic or magnified view is applied. Investment and promotion in our art forms is clear. According to Minister of Culture Honorable Nolan Cox, to show value, you must promote. And to promote, you must invest human resources as well as invest in money. Governmental support for culture has acknowledged this truth. In 2017, $22.3 million was allocated for the preservation and promotion of our culture. In 2018, $25.7 million. Grenada Annual Budget 2017-2018. Monetary investment. What about human resources? Minister Cox, for one, has been pivotal in the re-implementation of the Festival of the Arts 2018, which will promote our culture countrywide. Our established cultural foundations is indicative of efforts taken to highlight and preserve aspects of our culture. Sharma Wells, 2018. Proponents, District 1 Education Department, have been making tremendous efforts to engage students in learning cultural practices. Moreover, our Spice Mass Corporation places our most treasured festivals on a pair by itself, with our ever-growing and unique display of jab-jab, shortney, and veko, distinctive Grenadian culture, which has withstood the test of time. Longevity proponents value. Non-governmental agents are investing too. Tumda, Conception Dance Theatre, GBN, the Grenada Lottery Authority, Digicel, to name a few. Hasn't cultural transmissions of value emerged as evidence? Even our playwrights and dramatists give life to our culture by telling native stories through drama. Ricardo Kings Douglas, Robert White, Chris de Riggs, and Nigel Gale proves this. What about those who have passed on? Auntie Tech, Justin Crane Edwards, Anthony Jericho Greenidge, African Teller, Michael de Gale. Did they walk in vain? On another note, Carriacou though small is the cradle of culture. Featured are Big Drum, Maroon and Shungban Music Festival, Parang, boat building, traditional wedding, and its most unusual carnival tradition, Shakespeare Mass. Minister Cox, Carriacou Music and Quadrille have adapted, I quote, indigenous meaning and stylistic reinterpretation, unquote. McDaniel, 1998. Proponents, our soca and calypso artists and producers promote and maintain our music worldwide. Calypso is, I quote, the dominant popular music genre in the country, unquote. Burgess McLean, 2005. According to Tallpree, I quote, St. David for one, has maintained a strong culture in Calypso, unquote, further promoted through Junior Moraki. Proponents, continuity is evident. Grenadians in the diaspora value their culture so much that Grenada Day, Heritage Day, and Pity Macnic Day is celebrated annually, highlighting and promoting cultural practices. Finally, don't forget the use of local products in traditional medicines to sap the knee, drink for cooling, and live lizard in water for asthma, water of communal living. It's alive in Grenada and even in the diaspora. The proposed line that culture has been devalued is erroneous. The removal of pit latrines and mass santo is as a result of improvement in our way of life. Ali Gill, 2018. As it stands, Grenada's culture is multicultural, vibrant, and evolving, and we do value it. I thank you.
The opposition cross-examiner.
You claim that Grenadians do not value their culture. So what would have to be happening for you to agree that Grenadians do value their culture?
For Grenadians to value their culture, there should be programs in place that teaches us about our culture. Patois should be part of our curriculum in schools that teach us Patois that we can talk on a daily basis. There should be maypoles, students coming and dance the maypoles, or even in carnival. We don't even have maypoles. People don't even dance the maypole no more.
As stated by my first speaker, we have shown evidence of all of this taking place. We have programs in school which utilize Creole books and which teach children about patois. Miss Margaret Jane, she's currently undergoing a program which teaches students about patois. And maple is still alive in Carriacou every carnival.
In Carriacou, not in Grenada.
We are Grenadians. If we do not value our culture, why haven't we removed or changed any village names or destroyed our archaeological artifacts?
Because I guess it'd be too much cost of money for the government, so they just decide not to change it.
So they didn't change any of the village names because it would be too much money to change the village names.
But
this is a sign of value because we have preserved it, as stated by Ali Gill. When we value something, it is featured and it is preserved, and this is what we have done. So
because the government have not changed a village name means we value our culture?
Exactly, because we have preserved our culture. We have preserved
because
what
we have
is
preserved
ours.
that village name means we value our culture?
It is our culture. Grenada Day is celebrated annually in the US. Why do you believe such a celebration is held by our Grenadian people in another country?
Grenada Day is valued in the US because when was back in history, the US came to help us. But down in Grenada, we don't value our culture. US value our culture more than we value our culture.
I said Grenadian people in the US.
Grenadian people, okay. In the US, Grenadians value their culture in the US. That Grenadian people in the US.
So why haven't they forgotten about it? Why do they display it every year? Because they see the importance of it and they value
that's
it.
Grenadian people in the US. We down here, we don't value it.
They are Grenadians.
But
Youths engage in cultural practices from the teaching of our local cuisine in schools to junior soca and calypso competitions. Why did we see it fit to pass on our culture to the younger generation?
Youths engage in that? Where are the adults that also engage in it?
Who teach the youths? The adults teach the youths. They engage the youths and teach them to pass on our culture, as we have shown.
But only soca. You see, youths take in calypso. How much youths that take part in calypso? Very few. Very few.
And what evidence do you have to prove this?
I have.
The proposition cross-examiner.
My opponent, if you value your culture so much, can you tell me the significance of the saraka or even the jab jab?
It is celebrated and is continuously being done every year. When we have wakes, persons cook saraka, jab jab is played at every carnival.
My opponent, I didn't ask you if it is played, I asked you the significance, what it is about.
It is significant to us. This is part of our culture. It is ours, so this makes it significant to us.
What do the black paint on the jab jab mean? What do the chains they jab? What do that mean?
It means that you are representing yourself. You are Grenadian. You are participating in what is yours.
My opponent. No, my opponent.
So then what does it signify?
The chains on the jab jab signify, the heavy chains signify when our African ancestors passed the sea or the chains was heavy on them. That's what it signifies.
So this is Grenadian culture.
Right, but my opponent actually the significance. There is not a culture center where persons can go and learn patois or even plait the milfoil. So how then can we say we value our culture?
As we have shown before, Margaret Jane is currently undergoing a program where she goes around to the schools to teach children this language, patois.
That's one person. Where is the center where we can go and learn?
Probably there isn't a center developed as yet, but it is happening.
But we do not value our culture as yet.
But it is happening right now, so we value it right now.
Next question. Recently, there was a two-day workshop to teach the students of schools to learn patois. But how many times during the week have you and your peers learned French and Spanish?
We learned French and Spanish in school during the week, and this is done as well for patois, as we have shown in our speeches. In fact, just today on my way to Grenada, I met with this lovely lady, Miss Joseph, and she was ecstatic to tell me about patois and to hold conversations in patois with me.
My worthy opponent, maybe that only takes place in Caribbean, not in Grenada.
We are Grenadians, opponent.
Just one parish.
It takes place all over, as I have stated before, where it is taught in schools in Grenada.
Our grandparents have used patois as a method to hide their conversations from us. How can we then say we value our culture when it was used as protecting conversations and not show us the love and appreciation for the language?
Probably that's what they would use it for, but this doesn't say that we don't value it upon, because it is passed on from generation to generation. It is preserved and it is promoted. This shows that we value it.
How can we value it when we don't even know what they're saying? They're not teaching us how it is passed on.
As we have shown before, it is being taught.
Our history is linked with culture. So why are they teaching us Europe? Thank you.
The opposition rebuttal speaker.
Morning all. Your first speaker stated that we do not value our culture because of the disregard of our own cultural music in place of reggae and dancehall. But proponents fail to realize that this doesn't mean we don't value our culture, but in fact a clear example of cultural diversification and cultural awareness. Additionally, you stated that since we value our culture, then why have we eliminated the use of cultural items? But as my first speaker stated, according to Ali Gill, the removal of these items is as a result of our improvement in our way of life and does not say that we do not value it. You also boldly claim that we are not doing anything to preserve our culture. But as my second speaker stated, the government has allocated $25.7 million for the preservation of our culture. Adding to this, the very fact that we have established a cultural foundation is indicative of this. This foundation, according to the Chief Executive Officer of the foundation, this society receives a stipend from government monthly to promote and preserve our culture. This is value our opponents. You further went on to say that our tourism sector does not value our culture because it has changed the ideal of carnival. But proponents, what do we show tourists when they enter our country? Is it not our traditional African big drum and African music? Isn't sharing our culture value? And isn't carnival and jab ours? There is nothing wrong in promoting it. Your second speaker stated that because of the evolution of cultural activities, we don't value our culture. But this is an erroneous claim. This is like saying if you put brown sugar instead of white sugar in the tea won't sweet. You further went on to say that every Grenadian does not value our culture, but opponents value is a qualitative and not a quantitative term. Doesn't one speck of gold still have its value? I thank you.
The proposition rebuttal speaker.
Mr. Chairman, we are not simply here to debate a moot, but to elaborate on the need for preservation of authentic Grenadian culture, because it is only then we can truly say it is being valued. We are not contending that culture does not have to evolve. What we are lamenting is that things that we can proudly claim to be indigenous to our culture are being set aside while foreign cultures are being idolized and brandished as a new norm, leaving our authentic culture to be devalued. Mr. Chairman, our opponents would have mentioned measures are taken to teach Creole in schools, and there are competitions to promote Creole. But we are saying, why do we have to promote Creole language when we should already know it, since it is a part of our culture? Then, my worthy opponents, why is Standard English being respected more than Creole? Their first speaker claimed that culture is continuously changing. Yes, it is. Change is a must. But while evolving, we should not lose our identity, however, stick to our roots. Your second speaker would have stated Carriacou promotes their culture. However, Carriacou is 1/7 of Grenada. Mr. Chairman, we have presented our position. We have given undeniable points in support of Grenadians not valuing their culture. Let us be distinct and peculiar and preserve our culture. It is sad, but true. The harsh reality is Grenadians do not value their culture.
And the winner is Hillsborough Secondary. Thank you for joining us. Tune in again for Season 11 of the Grenlec Debates. Visit us on Facebook to vote for your favorite debater.
The Grenlec Debates. Powering bright ideas. Vote for your favorite debater on our Facebook page. The Grenlec Debates. Powering bright ideas.